Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to one of my 12 children. He's the 13th, the eldest one, Jean-Claude.
As I told you, I'm very happy to be here, and I must tell you it's the first time I've been in America, and I love it already very, very much. And I would like to sing the most wonderful avenue in the world, les Champs-Élysées. Je me baladais sur l'avenue, le cœur ouvert à l'inconnu. J'avais envie de dire bonjour à n'importe qui. N'importe qui, et ce fut toi, je t'ai dit n'importe quoi. Il suffisait de te parler pour t'apprivoiser. Oh, Champs-Élysées, oh, Champs-Élysées.
Hi, my name is Linda Diamond, and today we are in a wonderful place called Chez Josephine restaurant in New York City on West 42nd Street, in a location that is called Theater Row. This has a fascinating history because we'll tell you later about the importance of this restaurant in regard to Theater Row, as well as the founder, Jean-Claude Baker, to whom we are offering a tribute in his memory, as well as some information that you will really enjoy hearing about the wonderful Josephine Baker and all her many, many facets as a huge personality, humanist, pro-activist, and of course a great dancer, singer, and cabaret person whose life was the most colorful you can imagine, with all her trials and tribulations. So we want to combine all this with some people who actually have worked with and known Jean-Claude Baker, who was the 13th adopted child of the Rainbow Tribe, as Josephine Baker called it, of children from many nationalities and races, and that in itself was an emblem of her interest in the universality of mankind and womankind, that we are all brothers and sisters. And this will later on tie into some of her activism concerning race problems and so on, and she was certainly a great persona in many, many ways. So I'll tell you a little more about that, and first I want to introduce Pacheco, who's a great journalist and theater critic. Tell us a little about yourself.
I'm a freelance journalist, and I first met Jean-Claude as a journalist. I came to do a story on Josephine Baker in 1973. She was about to open at the Palace Theater in America, which was a rare appearance for her, and she insisted on speaking French to me, which didn't go so well because I don't understand or speak French. And the press agent said, we hear it didn't go so well with Josephine Baker, but we have her son, and he was really the 13th of her Rainbow Tribe, never officially adopted by Josephine Baker, and that's how I met Jean-Claude 42 years ago.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, that little anecdote alone can tell our viewers about how connected she was with her French nationality. Even though she wasn't officially French, she was considered a national treasure, among other things. So we'll go further into some other details after I introduce Mireille Miller, who is here with us today also, and she's an artist, and she'll tell you more about her connection with the restaurant and paintings.
Yeah, I'm Mireille Miller. I'm a painter. I am French American, and I met Jean-Claude in 1987 at Chez Josephine. And growing up, I was I'm sorry. Growing up, I grew up with Josephine. She was a big national treasure in France. And so meeting Jean-Claude for me was an instant coup de cœur.
Very beautiful. Well, I'd like to say a little bit about my connection. When I was starting my dance career in Paris, inadvertently, I had a replacement job at the Alcazar nightclub. And I didn't know a lot about Josephine Baker, but there was a Josephine Baker number with a banana costume. And, you know, we would watch it from the wings, and then we had to wear our can costumes and all the rest. So every night I saw this wonderful performance. And then years later, when I heard about the restaurant opening, I thought I have to go there. So it was in the mid-'80s, when shortly after it had opened up, I believe in 1985, but I might have come in 1986. And I asked Jean-Claude Baker, I said, oh, you know, I was in a show and there was the Josephine Baker number. And I said, the woman was fantastic. He said, that was no woman, that was a Brazilian man. And I said, oh, 15 years later, I just found out, or whatever it was. And then I said, well, what happened to all the costumes? Because one year, the Metropolitan Museum of Art costume collection had featured some of her wonderful cabaret costumes that were on mannequins, as I recall. So I said, oh, where are the rest of the costumes? He said, they were given to the transvestites of the world, as they should be. You know, and that was his type of manner. You know, he was a very outspoken, no-nonsense person. He was a fantastic host of this restaurant because he would go from table to table, and he always seemed like he was in a frenzy. But he was so personable and so hilarious in some ways, and he would just come out with things that would sometimes shock the pants off people. But that was Jean-Claude. So when you read the book that he finally wrote called, I think, Josephine, The Hungry Heart, it's a wonderful book you should look for, with a fantastic compendium, which will show you later close-ups of photographs about Josephine Baker and her honorary medals that she received from the French government, and also the fact that she was buried with a military funeral, which was never done either for an American at that time, and probably since then, because she was considered such a great national treasure. She also worked for the Resistance, which was during World War II, and that means that she was actually employed by the French government. It was like a kind of underground where they had to pass information and so on, and the Resistance was to resist the Nazis, basically, and you can look it up, of course, to learn more. So I just wanted to add a few little anecdotes about this, because he wrote this book, and it took him, I think, at least 2 years, and every time in the restaurant he'd always be, you know, just thrashing around, and he said, I have to finish this book, and it's annoying, and he was like, you know, he was like a total basket case. But he still showed up. He showed up at the restaurant nightly, and he was there to see everyone, and of course in his obituary you can see how people spoke about his a friendly, warm heart, and he treated each person as if they were his long-lost relative, whether it was Jackie Kennedy or someone that, you know, he hardly ever heard of. And that was the thing that made this restaurant so remarkably personable, with his presence, in addition to the wonderful paintings that we will be showing you close-ups of later. So with that in mind, I want to also start asking each of our wonderful guests, Patrick, Pacheco, and Mireille. I'll start with Mireille because she has very modestly not told you that she has done a fantastic mural, and I want to know the history. We'll show you a close-up of that later. Mireille, could you tell us a little bit about that painting and how you did this wonderful mural of so many famous people? Give us a little background and tell us the story of that.
Yes, actually I also wanted to say that those early years of the restaurant, he may have taken 2 years to write the book, but I think that every night in the restaurant, basically everybody was a soundboard for his storytelling.
Oh.
He was just telling the stories of that was part, I think, of the creative process of writing that book, to tell the stories of, that's what made the place also so exciting. Mm-hmm. Because you would come here and you would just sit there. If he sat at your table, he was just telling you the stories that he was collecting for the book or that he was discovering. So it was actually wonderful.
Yes, and tell us now about the history of how you came to do the mural that is hanging here of many, many well-known people, which we'll later itemize.
Yeah, in the 90s, actually, I had been wanting to do I had read the book. The book came out originally in 93. I had also been friends with Jean-Claude for quite a while, and I wanted to do a painting of the restaurant. And I think as an artist, it's always good that the person you want to do a painting for is going to want the painting. So I kept coming here and talking about this painting I wanted to do, these ideas I had about creating a painting for Jean-Claude. And at some point he got tired of having me talk about it, and he said to me, listen, I'm tired of you saying this. And he gave me a shoebox filled with photos and said, get to work. And so we did. Actually, we also sat together, went through that box filled with photographs, snapshots of people. And, he decided this one yes, this one no. I mean, and all these people actually in the painting have a personal connection to Jean-Claude. So it's not just patrons in a restaurant. They are people who meant something in his life. And I think in some ways, I was thinking of that the last few days, it's really, it could be a portrait of Jean-Claude, that painting, but it's also the story of a big chunk of his life. And so anyway, it took me a couple of years to do the painting. And what was absolutely remarkable about Jean-Claude is that at some point, he never wanted to see the painting. And at some point, which was wonderful for me because complete artistic freedom. But at some point I was thinking, well, what if he doesn't like it? When it was safe for me to think that he could actually look at it and it would not influence me one way or the other, or would not, shatter me if ever he did not like the painting. At that point, towards the end, when I was close to being finished, I asked him whether he wanted to see the painting, and he said, no. And I said, well, what if you don't like it? And he said to me, that should never be a consideration. You do what you think you have to do. It should not matter what I think of the painting. You do your work. And then...
Was he pleased when he finally saw it?
He cried when he saw the painting. So I had, I had a whole setup. I had the painting covered up. I had champagne and little petit fours when he came down to the studio to look at the painting. And so we talked before he could even look at the painting. And then when I unveiled the painting, he cried. And so
obviously
it was
he was
wonderful.
pleased.
Yes, he was really
Would you
happy
mind,
with it.
Mireille, telling us a little bit about, I know you're not going to enumerate all the people, because there's, how many different faces are on there? Over 30?
Well, no, there's more than 100 people, but by now, I should have tallied up. I think it's maybe 120 or maybe close to 30 now, because over the last few years, periodically, I would come back during the summer, spend a week or two on the tables there, and add
some faces.
Yeah, some faces.
Is Jackie Kennedy there?
Yes, she is there,
right.
on the banquette,
and
at her usual place,
which was near the garbage.
Right
It said somewhere that Jean-Claude said that Jackie Kennedy came with her son Jack at the time, who we know as John. And that she liked to sit near the bar and the garbage can because she didn't like human companions around her. So that's how Jean-Claude described it in one of the articles. But there were it's a roster of many people, including Al Hirschfeld, who's a very famous caricaturist in American art, and he himself was depicted as well.
Yes, and Harry Connick Jr. also, who used to come here before he became a big star. Oh. So I have him actually by the piano. I mean, I think probably if I had not read the book, the painting would have been different.
Oh, really?
But all this research that Jean-Claude did, that is part of the book, really influenced the way the painting went. I mean, in terms of the composition and who I was going to include in that. And it wasn't, I mean, it began originally, I just wanted to capture the atmosphere of the place. But of course, as I read the book, when I read the book, and also, of course, knowing Jean-Claude the way I knew him, it sort of became a painting that had a lot of different layers of it was no longer just a painting. It became, I mean, it was a real labor of love, and I wanted it to be, to honor the work he had done and who he was. The mix of people you have, black people, white people, everybody sort of living together, enjoying the same space, loving being together. And what Patrick was saying before, where you could come here and Jean-Claude would decide, okay, we'll sit next to this person that you did not know. But he was a master at that. Yes. And he just knew what to do and that it was going to work.
I think Liberace is there under the flowers. Is that Liberace?
Yes, to the left with his little
big
frilly
flowers. Right?
And Liam Neeson is right below him.
Oh, yeah. See.
And Jarry, one of his
brothers.
Yes, one of the adoptive sons of Josephine, is the figure standing with the arm outstretched.
Oh, up there, yeah, the top corner.
Yeah, with the purple tie.
Yes. Wonderful. And when you see these close-ups, then you really see the work that you put in on the portraits. I mean, each one is an individual work of art in itself, because you didn't just do like a quick caricature.
Yes,
you did a painting of each persona, which is quite beautiful and very detailed. And each one's personality really comes through, you know, because you see Jean-Claude looks like, you know, well, here I am. He looks a little worn out there, but it's kind of like...
Well, he looks mischievous.
Yeah, that's right.
As he was.
Yeah, he does. He has that.
And that's really, you know, that's sort
that
of
was the underlying.
He's got a scheme.
Yes.
To make all this work, and it did, time and time again. I mean, I brought here so many people who had the time of their life. I mean,
Mireille, please point out a few things. This close-up that we're looking at right now of Jean-Claude, can you point that out to everybody? Like over there?
Yes, Jean-Claude is right here in the center.
And tell us, did you place him in first or later?
No, I did not place him first. It's a little complicated. I had, as you remember, I had this shoebox filled with images, so I sort of began with the layout of the restaurant, because I wanted the painting to be in the restaurant, obviously.
Can you show us the Josephine Baker above? Point out where Josephine Baker is. We'll do a
this picture, actually, of Josephine Baker, when I presented the painting to Jean-Claude, I wrapped it up the way this photograph of Josephine is wrapped up, and it's a photograph that he did not know. A friend of mine from Germany who had a photo gallery in Germany gave me that image, and I inserted the image in the painting, and when I gave Jean-Claude, when I unveiled the painting for Jean-Claude, I actually handed him also the picture wrapped the way this is wrapped here and the way the painting was wrapped.
No wonder it was such a moving experience for him. Point out a few of the celebrities and tell us who they are.
You were mentioning before Jackie O, and she is right on the banquette.
Oh, show us.
Right next to Stéphane Grappelli is to her right.
Well, can you point to it, or is it too high up? So, there she is. Yes.
Yes.
This. Let me just.
She's
right
actually
over here,
sitting right behind Freddie Washington.
Oh, which one? Where? Over.
Freddie Washington is the lady sitting on the table, and right behind her is Jackie Kennedy. And Freddie Washington was one of the dancers who danced with Josephine Baker in the 20s.
Trick Pacheco painted in Mireille Miller's painting, and he was interviewed today. And this is Mireille's ex-husband, right? Mm-hmm. What was his name?
Brian Miller.
Oh yeah, Brian Miller, who's a well-known New York Times. He was a writer.
The restaurant critic.
The restaurant critic for the New York Times, who introduced Mireille to this restaurant, and that's how the painting later came about. Is that true? Yes. So each thing has a little history within a history. And of course, each character here that's depicted is
The
very...
man up there, sitting
up there.
with
on
the
top
trumpet
corner.
is Louis Armstrong,
Oh, way
with
up
the
there.
trumpet on his
Yes.
lap. You see it?
Can you do a close-up there?
You see it right here?
No.
This one? With Duke Ellington on the right with the hat.
With the hat and, yeah.
No,
And who's in back of Jean-Claude? Was she a performer?
Bessie Smith.
Oh, that's Bessie Smith. Oh,
Yes.
of course, she's well known. And then
And
some of the
you
others.
have John Simon, the theater critic.
Uh-huh. And
Jessie Norman.
here's Jessie Norman.
Jean-Claude's mother, Luce.
Oh, this is
his biological
here.
mother.
This
Luce.
is his mother.
Yes.
Oh, how lovely. And was this one of his sons? Or, I mean, her
No,
son?
this is a young man, Joe Reyes, who used to work here that Jean-Claude liked very much.
And this
Um,
this is who? This is someone.
And this is
An
having a
actress?
blank. No, I'm having a blank.
Oh.
Right next to her, with the book, the Josephine book, is his co-writer.
Oh, that's Chris.
yes,
Chris
Chris
Chase.
Chase.
This is the Josephine Baker book, and that we were looking at. And
The lady Ginger here is Ginger from Paris
Oh,
with
which one?
the
This?
sailor
Oh, right,
outfit.
sailor.
She's a young woman who came from France. I remember that very
Oh,
well.
yes.
She came from France and would actually call herself Ginger from Paris and would tap dance. And so Jean-Claude would sort of clear the bar and she would get on top of the counter and would dance for...
really on top of the wooden bar.
Yes, it's not a wooden bar, it's zinc top bar actually, and she would tap dance on the bar for customers. I actually have a picture of that.
Oh, do you? That must have been fun. So, where's Al Hirschfeld? The artist.
Right here.
Yeah, that's it. With the white beard.
And Howard Kissel, the critic also
Yes.
there. And Natasha Richardson is here
Oh, yeah.
when she was doing cabaret with Alan Cummings as a pendant on the other side of the canvas.
Yeah, over here. The extreme left, our left.
Yes.
And then...
And the lady with the red hat that you were looking at before is Liliane Montevecchi.
Oh, of course. I remember her. And up above are paintings that are in the restaurant, so maybe our camera will go to the uppermost center where you did you reconstruct that whole painting?
Yes, I
So you-
repainted.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I repainted the artwork that's in the restaurant visible on that side of the.
Do you know who the artist was of that banana dance?
I did, but I'm sorry to say I
right.
forgot. I actually also am in the painting.
Oh, show us where you
But
are.
you know,
You're hidden.
I sort of thought either I was going to be sort of nude in the middle of the painting, but it's not really.
So show us
So
where
I
you're
actually
hidden.
put myself on the shelf all the way on top to the
Oh,
far
how
left.
cute. Oh, the far left.
Yes,
like little statue.
where you had this little collection of little soldiers up there, and I figured it was fitted to
Oh,
be
how cute.
sort of at the service of my patron.
Oh, how lovely.
And I'm holding paintbrushes in my hand. I'm in my apron and
Yeah, I see that. That's great. So you really did a magnificent job. I mean, to have put all these people. Wasn't it put on a postcard that he used to give out at the restaurant?
Yes,
Because
yes.
I remember having...
There's Nureyev up there. You have Liam Neeson,
Oh, yeah.
Liberace by the flowers.
Show us where you said Baryshnikov?
Nureyev.
Oh, Nureyev,
It's
right.
right here. Across from him in green is Stéphane Grappelli.
Okay, well, thank you so much. This has been really a pleasure to have the artist here in person. And Mireille Miller was commissioned for this fantastic, is it 12 feet long? 6 feet long? How
No,
much?
it's 12 feet long,
12
yes.
foot
Yes.
long painting that graces the brick wall of Chez Josephine. And it's truly a tribute to everything that Jean-Claude felt about his many, many friends and colleagues. They were all his family, really, and it's kind of like what Pacheco told us before, that he really embraced and more or less adopted everybody that came his way as if they were his own family members, regardless of whether they were celebrities or not. So this painting by Mireille Miller really depicts not only all the celebrities, but the fact that she has a painting that already exists here, painted within a painting, is like a magnificent masterpiece, because to do that is like quite a feat, I think. So I want to congratulate you on your subtlety and your humor, and it's quite a magnificent work, and truly something that graces the walls here at Chez Josephine as a tribute to Claude Baker, and we're very happy to be here today.
It was this symbiotic relationship between Jean-Claude and with Josephine Baker, and in some ways they were soulmates, and it was a love-hate relationship. Would you say, Mireille?
Yes, I would. And I think that Jean-Claude loved creating magic, and this was also, I mean, I think someone like Josephine Baker also had a big aura.
Yes.
And I just think that this was...
Attracted.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
a magnetic pull.
Yes.
Definitely.
I mean, she was larger than life. She was beautiful. She was glamorous. I think Jean-Claude loved magic, and this was a way also to be as creative as he wanted to be with it.
And to receive some of her light.
Yes,
In a
probably.
way, the
Yeah,
limelight-
and yes,
the
absolutely.
limelight was
Yeah.
also on
Absolutely,
him. that way.
absolutely.
It was totally about, to some extent, reflected glory, and they traveled the world together. They did.
Yeah.
She was doing her concert dates, and there's very amusing stories in The Hungry Heart about Josephine Baker, because to some extent, as with all superstars, she was a little nuts. She was a little crazy.
So the two of them got along?
They got along. They, it was, they were both temperamental. They both could be temperamental, and I think that he genuinely cared for her. He genuinely appreciated her legend and her story and contributed to it. And when he was a little boy and he left Saint-Symphorien in his village, he made 3 vows. One, that he would never do his military service, which he did not do in France. He would never carry his father's name. He was very antithetical toward his father. And that he would have a statue in the town square like Napoleon III.
Of himself?
Of himself. He never got his statue, but this is his monument. Chez Josephine
Yes.
is his monument.
Yes.
Chez Josephine is his statue of Napoleon III.
So it's in Times Square.
Yes.
Close to
Times
Square.
And speaking of that subject, Patrick can tell us more also about the fact that this restaurant, the way it got dropped in this area, it was a very seedy area, and I believe it said somewhere in one of the notes or articles that it used to be a massage parlor, and that I think once the restaurant opened up, there were still some remnants of the people who did massage, and they would talk to couples coming in and say, well, we have a better deal for you for $10 or something like that. That's what I read. I don't know if that was still happening, but it was a very seedy area, and his restaurant, I believe, helped to uplift the whole ambiance of Theatre Row as we know it today, because Playwrights Horizons is next door as well as many other. Tell them about that history and all the theaters, since that's your field.
Yes, there was no question that this area, which is Hell's Kitchen, I still call it Hell's Kitchen, some people call it Clinton, but Hell's Kitchen is much more evocative name for it. There was no question that this was a low-rent area. It was prostitution and drugs, and there are signs, Playwrights Horizons, was opened, but there was a sign in that window there of Chez Josephine that said full satisfaction, $10 full satisfaction, and it was a massage parlor. And Jean-Claude would always say, "Well, it's $10, and we'll give you even more satisfaction." I think that was all part of, to some extent, the apocrypha that might have accompanied some of the early stories of Jean-Claude. But there's no question that places like West Bank across the street and Chez Josephine helped to turn this area around. And Jean-Claude was always the pioneer. He was very proud of being an Aries. His birthday is April 18th, 1943. So he had a pioneer spirit. So when he would take me with him on his hunts around various sites, and even though he was a longtime resident of the east side of Manhattan, he was drawn to, I think, the French, and Mireille, you can correct me on this, but isn't there a French term called nostalgie de la boue, nostalgia for the mud, which is how to go
Yes.
how to go slumming. And so I think Jean-Claude loved that idea of going slumming in the seedy, tacky areas of New York City, which this certainly was, and that he would establish his beachhead here, which of course he did, and which people would come because it was a destination to begin with. Most people wouldn't be caught dead in this area, but because Jean-Claude was here and because Chez Josephine was here, people would come, and you would have limousines probably for the first time. Well, maybe not for the first time, because there were prostitutes applying up and down 42nd Street. You would have limousines arriving at Chez Josephine because they were here to see Jean-Claude and to partake in the fun that Chez Josephine was and continues to be.
I just had a thought that even though I know this location is a rental, is there any chance it could become a landmark type of place? Or, I mean, I know you have to own the building or the floor, but it feels to me, in all that you both are telling me about, that it would be a wonderful tribute because of all of the history here that exists and the lively aspect of all the many different people. I mean, almost like Sardi's, which of course has a great name in the world of, the patrons who came there and the paintings, the pictures of the famous celebrities. And the more I learn about this, I feel like it should be almost classified like Sardi's as far as its museum quality of the paintings and the people, and just the way he established this place has such a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, it's a wonderful idea. What's amusing, and Mireille can probably remember this as well, is that obviously there were all these brownstones along 42nd Street between 9th and 10th Avenue, and slowly they all disappeared for these high-rises, like Nima is right down the street. And I would look across the street. I live across the street, and I'm walking my dog all the time, and so one by one these brownstones would come down, these Nedics and hot dog stands would come down, and there would be the brownstone with Chez Josephine, all sort of lonely,
by itself.
all by itself, as these other high-rises and went up all around it. But it is this little engine that could, and has been for 27 years.
Yes, and you know actually that under this large painting, which speaks to the historian in Jean-Claude also, he kept the mural that was in the massage parlor.
Oh, did he? Oh,
The reclining nude.
That's cute. So he kept the history
Yeah, so
of it.
this painting is covering the mural.
That's great. Also, I wanted to say that we're located at Chez Josephine Restaurant at Theater Row, as it's known, on West 42nd Street in New York City. And we're also across the street from a building, just coincidentally, which is in passing to tell you, called Manhattan Plaza, which houses many, many well-known artists and musicians. It's kind of like a who's who of American theater, dance, and so on. Of course, they like to keep their privacy and anonymity, but do you want to say a little about that?
Sure. I mean, Jean-Claude was very proud of supporting artists. And as Linda just said, Manhattan Plaza is a Section 8 subsidized housing for performing artists who can't afford a decent rent. And that's how they were in this area because, of course, the theater district in Times Square and Broadway is just about a 5 or 10 minute walk away. But along with that, there was a certain amount of fair market apartments. So Angela Lansbury lived at Manhattan Plaza. Tennessee Williams lived at Manhattan Plaza. Jimmy Kirkwood, who wrote A Chorus Line, lived at Manhattan Plaza. And I think that Jean-Claude's commitment to artists extended not only to young dancers and young actors who just arrived in New York, because he could always sympathize, having just arrived himself, first in Paris, then in Liverpool, where he took up with this small little band that was trying out at the time called the Beatles, to Whisper Lynn. He was always sort of a newcomer, so he always appreciated helping out anybody that arrived in New York. And not only was he appreciative of newcomers and young people, but often Jean-Claude would say, come, we're going to go in our little French Renault, his little French car. And it was frightening to drive with him because he would drive up on the sidewalks. He would honk his horn. He was a total Wreck. Well, he wasn't a wreck. His passengers were a wreck. And we would go up to Harlem, and we would go into this basement that would be piled with memorabilia. And I remember one person in particular, as Mireille talked earlier about Josephine Baker's peers. One was Bessie Taliaferro. And here was this woman who was well into her 80s, if not her 90s, African-American who had known Josephine in those days. And she would bring out these scrapbooks. And here was this woman who time had forgotten, most people had forgotten, didn't know those glory days, and Jean-Claude would bring them back alive in so many ways, and he would invite them down here. Yes. There were many times that Mireille and I were here, and these African-American performers from the early 20th century would be there, and especially women. Jean-Claude was always fixated on mothers, partly having to do with his own mother, Luce, and obviously having to do with Josephine, his two mothers. But on Mother's Day, he would host parties and bring all these African-American women together. Of course, they'd be jealously fighting for his attention. And of course, he loved that.
Yeah.
And he would dole out his favors. But it was lovely to see him interact with these women who just shone in his presence.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that really gives us a flair and a feeling as if Jean-Claude is still here now. It brings back a lot of memories and awareness of the personality that he was. And he was also actually bigger than life, too, in a way, when you hear the description and all the amazing things he did, because obviously he was a very good manager and business person, in addition to being a performer and a restaurant director, because all of this would not be here if it didn't have some kind of a focus from somebody who knew the importance of assembling these paintings and historical material that, again, I had mentioned was in the book that you can learn about, and it really is a complete history of what was going on at the time in Josephine Baker's life as far as what was going on in the world, you know, with World War II and the different issues, and the race issues in America actually were a very big part of what she was combating. And I know there have been some movies about her life, but this is something that Americans should know more about, because I believe there was an incident, was it at the Copacabana or somewhere? Do you know that story?
It was at the Stork Club.
Stork Club.
Josephine Baker was the only woman who spoke at the March on Washington in 1963, interestingly enough, when Martin Luther King obviously gave his I Have a Dream speech. But in terms of the Stork Club, it was a very complicated story to some extent. Josephine Baker was never, became a big star in France. Her comebacks here, or her returns to the United States, were not always welcomed. She never got the reviews in the United States that she got in France. She was never as big a star, obviously, here as she was in France. And on one of her trips, I believe it was in the 50s, Walter Winchell, who was the most powerful columnist in America at the time, and who had been a longtime supporter of Josephine Baker up until this moment. She happened to be in the Stork Club, Sherman Billingsley, famous, legendary club where all the famous people would go. And an incident occurred in which she was not served right away. There was a great delay in bringing her food, and she stormed out with her party out of the Stork restaurant, and later claimed that Walter Winchell, who had actually not even been at the club at the time, had not come to her defense. So it was a bit of a complicated story, but it made international headlines, sort of the way when Oprah was refused in Paris at a store, a very famous store. It was something along the same lines that made international headlines as well. And that was, so it was a racial incident, and Josephine Baker used it to point up the inequities, obviously, that were going on in America, certainly for centuries, and then it came to a boil in the 50s and the 60s.
Do you know if Josephine Baker left this country because of some of that turmoil that she experienced? Because she speaks, I think, a lot about it, too, that he had quoted in the book about the different injustices, to put it mildly, for want of a better word, and discrimination that took place. Of course, she came from Illinois.
St. Louis.
St. Louis.
Yeah, she was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and of course, when she was very young, witnessed ugly race riots in East St. Louis. They were devastating. Lots of people were killed in race riots when she was a young child. Buildings were burned. So the terrible racial discrimination was burned into her, as it is with any African American who grew up since slavery, for that matter, much less the last century. A lot of entertainers found their passport to Europe very liberating, whether it was in the 20s or in the 50s. James Baldwin, of course, and a lot of African American artists found their way to Paris, where they felt they could be more free and certainly not subject to the discrimination that they found in this country. I think Josephine just felt she was in Shuffle Along on Broadway, or actually in the touring company, not on Broadway. It was a review, U.B. Blake review, that first gave her big break in the United States. And then it was out of that Caroline Dudley was creating this review called La Revue Negre that was going to go off to open in Paris, October 2nd, 1925. So Josephine found herself, along with a whole group of African Americans, on the Berengaria. I think they sailed on the Berengaria out of New York to arrive in Paris, little knowing that within 6 months of the show's opening, she would be an international sensation. So I think it was entertainment that brought her there, but there's no question that once she was there, she felt much freer than the African Americans she left behind in the United States.
Yeah, and I think probably her many trying to come back here, where I think she was afraid of coming back, and she wanted to be here because she wanted the acceptance. I think she was such a big star in France that, becoming French in a way, she was hoping that once she was here, people were going to recognize that
The same
she
stature.
was just a big star, and all that racial discrimination would sort of lift.
away.
It would go away.
But it didn't.
And it didn't. And time again, I think she was just disappointed.
Definitely. So that's a very important aspect behind the scenes also of her activism and her courage to speak up, and not only speak up, but also many of the things that she did on behalf of the French government, and also on an egalitarian concept of bringing people together, and that's why her Rainbow Tribe was a metaphor for her outlook on the importance of bringing all different races and nationalities together, and she did that by raising a family, which also cost her one of her divorces. I heard that she was married to, I forgot the name of the person, but 3 times, but the third one wasn't a real marriage. Josephine Baker and partner went to an empty church. They said their vows to each other and they left. So there were no witnesses, no priests, and that's how her secret third marriage was. I guess that was also like a statement, like, the hell with this institution. I think we'll do it our own way. So I thought that was an interesting little anecdote I came across recently, I think from the book or whatever, and that she was constantly speaking up and constantly a spokesperson for the downtrodden, so to speak, as well, and someone who was definitely against all conventions.
Yeah,
if they didn't suit her, right?
Yeah, she was definitely a renegade. She was always a rebel, and so was Jean-Claude.
I was just going to say he had.
They were both renegades, and I think they recognized that in each other. I think the last couple of marriages, I think, of Josephine, or the 2 that I can remember, was Count Pepito, who wasn't really a count, right? And then Joe Bouillon, I think, who was really the father of the Rainbow Tribe. I mean,
until he divorced her.
Until he divorced her, because
he kept just adopting.
Well, and she drove him crazy. She drove him nuts. He finally just said, "Enough already. I'm out of there." And he moved to Argentina with some of the kids. Jean Baker, who is part of the Rainbow Tribe and who has been here and part of its growth, and he's the official Rainbow Tribe representative to some extent. of Chez Josephine. He grew up in Argentina with Joe Biel.
Well, there is a wonderful movie, I forgot the title, but it depicts a lot of these scenes and also some of the things that we've talked about. So if there's ever a rerun of that, I think there have been several movies and, of course, several books. This is not the only book that has been written, but it really gives you an inside story into what was happening historically around her and how involved she was with her, era. And she was definitely what we call engagée, which in French means that you're committed to a cause and you're, committed. It doesn't always translate into English, because in English it sounds like you're engaged. But there's no ring involved in this one. This is about, je suis engagée means I am, committed to the rights of man.
Activism.
Activism, right.
Activism,
But it's
really.
interesting the way she really portrayed
activist.
that. And I think Jean-Claude also was, even though he wasn't her birth son, what we're seeing as we discuss this and unfold little anecdotes, it really seems to come to obvious, apparent interest that both he, Jean-Claude Baker, and his adopted mother, Josephine Baker, shared this type of tremendous commitment to a cause and to be very outspoken and not to be afraid of who was being insulted or what was happening. Just tell it like it is. And, having our say, which was also the name of a play somewhere along the line. But that is what is so remarkable. And for me personally, I find it really interesting when an artist who is a dancer, musician, or whatever, is also part of their time and their era and is not afraid to speak up, and even if they go against all other, conventions. So this is what really makes for an important historical tribute to Jean-Claude Baker, who we are giving a tribute to. He passed away just recently on January 12th, I believe it is. January 15th, 2015. And I sadly learned about it later because I called up this restaurant, Chez Josephine, knowing that a musician, a pianist named Terry Waldo was going to be playing at the piano. So I thought, well, I have to bring this book and ask Jean-Claude to sign it. So when I called up, they said, well, he's not here. And I said, is he coming later? Because I knew he was always going to be here. So that's how I finally found out that sadly he had committed suicide and we had lost the founder of this wonderful place. And it was even more meaningful and important for me to come here to be able to talk to Patrick and to talk to Mireille, which was arranged very generously by the management of Chez Josephine restaurant that you should definitely visit if you come to New York. And it was just something very important in my heart to be able to gather together all this wonderful information, and some of it is more like oral history for you now, because of course there are many anecdotes, books, and so on. But when you get to hear from people who actually knew Jean-Claude Baker, it may give you a better insight into the whole surrounding domain of what Josephine Baker was about and what the heritage was that Jean-Claude Baker received. So thank you for watching this program, and you'll be able to see a few excerpts here and there of the paintings.
C'est ainsi, la nuit veut, loin d'ici, que montent ces chants joyeux. Dans les cœurs, l'amour fait sa loi vainqueur, le temps s'enfuit, nul ne dort.